All right, hi everybody, and thank you for joining today's CMS Web Interface User Demonstration. During this webinar, CMS will provide an overview of the 2019 CMS Web Interface Quality Reporting for MIPS groups and Accountable Care Organizations, or ACOs. After the webinar, CMS will take as many questions as time allows. So now I'll turn it over to Sandra Adams-Slaughter from CMS to begin.
Thank you, Lauren. I would like to welcome everyone to the CMS Web Interface User Demonstration. This is Sandra Adams-Slaughter from the Performance-Based Payment Policy Group in the Center for Medicare. This is the first in a series of CMS Web Interface webinars. Next slide, please. Here's our disclaimer slide. We will present this on all of our webinars. This presentation was current at the time it was published and uploaded. Medicare policy changes frequently, so links to the source documents have been provided within the document for your reference. The presentation was prepared as a service to the public and is not intended to grant rights or impose obligations. The presentation may contain references or links to statutes, regulations, or other policy materials. The information provided is only intended to be a general summary. It is not intended to take the place of either written law or regulations. We encourage readers to review the specific statutes, regulations, and other interpretive material for a full and accurate statement of their contents. Next slide, please. And now we have some CMS Web Interface key dates that I would like to go over. The CMS Web Interface submission period opens on January 2nd, 2020 and closes on March 31st, 2020. The submission period for 2019 reporting aligns with other submission types, and again, we will close promptly at 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time on March 31st, 2020. This year, there is no CMS Web Interface test period at the start of the submission period. The web interface will automatically accept your submission at the end of the submission period, and below is a picture of how you would sign in to the Quality Payment Program website and the CMS Web Interface. Next slide, please. And here are some CMS Web Interface key updates. So new for program year 2019, the other CMS approved reasons skip requests will be submitted through the CMS Web Interface. Also, we have a reminder that the 2019 CMS Web Interface Application Programming Interface is available for testing in the developer preview environment. For information, please review the documents below. And this is a schedule of the upcoming CMS Web Interface support calls. Next slide, please. And now Laura Hasse will go over a CMS Web Interface demonstration.
Thank you, Sandra.
Okay, just a brief pause while we transition over to Laura's screen.
Welcome to a demonstration of the CMS Web Interface. During this demonstration, you will not see any personally identifiable information, PII, nor will you see any personal health information, PHI. All names, beneficiary IDs, date of birth, genders, providers, clinics, groups, and accountable care organizations have been de-identified for the purpose of this demonstration. Once you log into the Quality Payment Program and navigate to the CMS Web Interface, on the left-hand side, you'll see the navigation menu. At the top, you'll see the organization name with an ID. This could either be TIN, APM Entity ID, or Virtual Group ID. Below, you'll see the following menu items: View Progress, Report Data, View Reports, Manage Clinics, Manage Providers, and Frequently Asked Questions. You can collapse the left navigation or expand it as well. When you access the CMS Web Interface, you'll land on the View Progress page, where you'll see your organization's reporting progress and team activities. At the top of the View Progress page, there's a timeline that displays measures available, start reporting, and submission due. Below the timeline, there are 3 to-do cards that will update throughout the reporting period. The first box is titled Reporting in Progress. If I click Continue link on this card, the system takes me back to where I left off. The second box is titled Excel Errors. If I have any Excel errors with the latest upload, this card displays the number of errors along with a link to view those errors. The third box is titled Data Irregularity. If I submit any data that is logically inconsistent, the Data Irregularities box will notify me that I may want to review my data before final submission. Scrolling down the page, notice I have 143 days left in the reporting period, and so far I've completed 8 out of 10 measures. The next section is Measure Progress. It's sorted automatically by completion status. There is a card for each measure. For example, Care 2. You can see there are 248 beneficiaries that are consecutively completed. We've met the minimum reporting requirement. No reporting has occurred in the oversample. The benchmark is displayed below. And the performance rate shows that I have 100% performance with 248 beneficiaries in the numerator and 248 in the denominator. For all the other measures, you can see the reporting status. As the list is sorted by completion status, at the bottom, you'll see the 2 measures that I have remaining to complete. For DM2, we only have 247 beneficiaries consecutively completed. There are 2 beneficiaries in the numerator and 247 in the denominator. For Pres 6, I have 172 consecutively completed beneficiaries with a 50% performance rate. Below the Measure Progress section, you'll see the team activity. The top part shows your activity, and the bottom part shows your team's activity. Now let's explore reporting data. There are 3 ways to report data in the CMS Web Interface. Manually through the user interface, through an Excel upload, or through the CMS Web Interface API. The API enables programmatic data reporting and real-time performance tracking. We provide API documentation to help users understand this method of reporting, as well as an API developer preview environment that is now available to test out your API with test beneficiary data before the submission period. You can build integrations with your software to test the CMS Web Interface data reporting via the API. The Excel upload is a bulk reporting mechanism that the CMS Web Interface provides to organizations. To start, you can download an Excel spreadsheet containing beneficiaries ranked for each measure with data that has already been reported or a blank spreadsheet. After populating the Excel spreadsheet with the data your organization wants to report against, you can upload it to the CMS Web Interface. There is also a manual reporting process in which your organization can view your beneficiaries list and report data manually against them in the CMS Web Interface. You can choose to report data manually per beneficiary or for each individual measure. Starting with reporting data manually by measure, let's go to DM2. There's an indicator that shows the progress against my reporting. In addition, it shows that I've completed 239 beneficiaries. Out of the 248, I must minimally report on. The minimum reporting requirement for DM2 is 248. If we scroll down to the beneficiary list for DM2, we can see that I've completed a total of 246 beneficiaries. I have 370 beneficiaries incomplete with 0 beneficiaries skipped. I can click on the Incomplete tab to go to my list of incomplete beneficiaries. And once I click Edit Data, I can start entering data for this beneficiary. At the top, you see some demographic information about this particular beneficiary. I can edit that information by clicking Edit Info. For example, if the gender was incorrect, I can change the gender here. I can also change the date of birth. Now I'll click Save. You can see the date of birth updated, and so did the gender. Let's scroll down and answer some questions about this measure. To start, the beneficiary is already confirmed for the sample. The first question for DM2 is, does the patient have a documented history or active diagnosis of diabetes during the measurement period or the year prior to the measurement period? We're going to select the Yes radio button here. The next question, did the patient have one or more HbA1c tests performed during the measurement period? If we select Yes here, we need to enter a date drawn, starting with a month, then day, then year. The next field is the HbA1c value. We need to enter a number between 0 and 25. You'll notice that this is the last question for DM2. Currently, our beneficiary is incomplete. Once we move out of this field, you'll see the beneficiary is marked complete, and our call to action floats up so you can jump to the next incomplete beneficiary. Please note, the CMS Web Interface saves your data automatically as you enter it. There is no Save button, so you don't have to click Save to save your data. Additionally, there's an indicator at the top of the screen that shows the last time the data was saved. Now let's jump to the next incomplete beneficiary for DM2. For this beneficiary, I'm going to say yes, the beneficiary is confirmed for the sample. But for DM2, we're going to ask to skip this beneficiary. We do so by requesting other CMS approved reasons. The skip request pop-up modal displays. This is the form we need to fill out to provide CMS with more information on why we are requesting to skip the beneficiary. Other CMS approved reason is reserved for unique cases that are not covered by any other measure skipped reasons. Note that skipped requests can only be submitted manually through the CMS Web Interface. Please do not provide any PII or PHI in this request. Most of the information for the request is provided for us. we can see my username, organization and ID, the measure and beneficiary rank. We just need to fill out our email address in case CMS needs to reach out if further information is needed, and a description why the beneficiary is not qualified for this measure. Once I select Request CMS Approval, I will see a confirmation pop-up modal that gives me the skip request case number. Beneficiaries will remain incomplete until CMS resolves the skip request. The CMS web interface will automatically update with the resolution of a skip request, either approved or denied. When a skip request is approved, the beneficiary is automatically skipped for that measure, and another beneficiary must be reported in their place. When a skip request is denied, the beneficiary will remain incomplete, and we will see the skip request status updated below no other CMS approved reason. This will indicate we need to complete reporting for that beneficiary. After submitting the skip request, we can use this link to view the case details that we submitted to CMS. At the top, it will display the skip request case status along with the case history. The contextual help on the right side also explains what happens after the skip request is submitted. Let's navigate back to Report Data and filter by DM2. We can see on the Incomplete tab that this beneficiary is incomplete and the skip request review is in progress. Now let's look at reporting via Excel. We first click the download button. There are two types of download options. The first is beneficiary sample without data, which downloads only pre-filled CMS data. This download is the original sample before I input any data into the CMS web interface. The second option is beneficiary sample with data, which downloads data that I've already entered into the CMS web interface, either manually via a previous Excel upload or via the API. I'm going to select Beneficiary Sample with Data and click the Download button. Notice the Download Progress pill displays in the bottom of my screen. Once the download is complete, this progress pill goes away and I can open the downloaded spreadsheet with my beneficiary sample. This spreadsheet contains all of the beneficiary data along with all of the data reported so far against the measures for those beneficiaries. Let's look at the organization of the spreadsheet. The first section contains beneficiary demographics. The next section contains beneficiary confirmation for the sample. Following the beneficiary confirmation, there's a separate section for each measure. All the information needed to report on a measure is listed under each header. Notice here we have Care 2, Screening for Future Fall Risk. Moving to the right, there will be one area for each measure. Back to the demographic section, This area in the spreadsheet, the beneficiary ID, the first name, the last name, the gender, and the date of birth, are all light gray in color, meaning that these fields cannot be changed through the Excel upload process. However, some of these fields, like gender and date of birth, can be changed through the manual data entry process. Let's look at the measure questions. If a beneficiary is ranked in the measure, then the number for that beneficiary's rank will be populated in the measure rank column. If a beneficiary is not ranked in that measure, I don't need to enter data in these fields for this measure. Entering beneficiary data is straightforward. By clicking on the sort functionality, I can order beneficiaries based on their rankings for a measure. Now that I've sorted my beneficiaries by rank, I can answer the measure questions by using the drop-down menus to select my answer. For example, for Care 2, the first question is the patient qualified for this measure. By selecting the drop-down, I can choose yes, and that enables the next question: was the patient screened for future fall risk at least once during the measurement period? Any fields that are left blank will not be saved in the system. Similarly, any data previously entered in the system will not be overwritten. For questions where we want to intentionally save a blank in the system, we need to select NA from the drop-down. Next, let's select no other CMS approved reason for the next incomplete beneficiary. As we mentioned earlier, a skip request must be completed through the manual data entry process. When you select no other CMS approved reason, the next two columns become enabled. These cells are light gray in color, meaning they cannot be changed through the Excel upload process. We can also see there's a tooltip that we need to submit the skip request manually through the web interface. On our next download with data, after we have submitted the skip request through the user interface, we will be able to see the skip request status and case number populated in these fields. Let's go back to the CMS Web Interface. Once I've updated the spreadsheet for a measure or multiple measures, I can drag and drop the file here to upload to the CMS Web Interface. I can also click the Browse button to select my file to upload. I have a completed spreadsheet with some beneficiary data, so I will select the spreadsheet to upload. After I click the Upload button to confirm the file selection, an Upload Progress indicator displays. While the upload is occurring, it's transferring the file as well as processing all the data within the file. The upload indicator disappears once the upload is complete. That measures complete changed from 8 out of 10 to 9 out of 10. This update happened in real time as a result of the file upload. Let's go to View Progress. Previously, we had all but DM2 and PREV6 complete. Now, as we scroll down the page, we can see that PREV6 is complete. We've completed 248 beneficiaries with 125 beneficiaries in the numerator and 248 in the denominator, achieving a 50.40% performance rate. We can see our performance rate marked against the benchmark below the measure. Let's check out some reports. There are 5 different reports available in the CMS Web Interface. a data confirmation report, where you can review the real-time CMS receipt of your reporting data, a measure rates report, where you can view in-depth statistics per measure for the data you've reported, a data irregularities report, which only shows if you have data irregularities that you need to review to make sure your data is accurate, an activity log where you can track your team's activity over time. Also, there's the skip request report. If you happen to have any skip requests, this is where you can track your progress. Let's get started with the data confirmation report. There's a section called Reporting Summary based on data CMS received. This provides a snapshot of when the submission is due and how many measures you've completed. The measures are broken up into two sections: measures that meet the requirement and measures that don't meet the requirement. Under each of these sections, there are measure cards that list the measure name and description, the minimum requirements met or not met, anything that was reported above the minimum, the number of consecutively complete beneficiaries, those beneficiaries that are included in the denominator, and those beneficiaries that are included in the numerator, and any beneficiaries that your team has skipped. At the bottom of the measure card, there's a performance rate. At the bottom of the data confirmation report page, you're able to see more details about your measure progress and performance by navigating to the measure rates report. Now let's explore the measure rates report. In this report, there is a card for each measure. I can click on View Details to get more detailed information for that measure. For example, the View Details for PREV 5. The measure rates detailed report for PREV 5 shows different categories at the top level. You can see the beneficiaries that are complete, incomplete, and those that are skipped, as well as the beneficiaries that are consecutively complete, and those that are included in the denominator, and those that are included in the numerator. If we select one of these, such as skipped, we can see the two beneficiaries that are skipped for the PREV 5 measure. Navigating back to the measure rates report, you can filter the measure rates report per measure and see just one measure card, or you can look at all measures at once. You can also print or download the report. Let's look at the data irregularities report. This report allows you to locate illogical reported data that may need additional attention before submission closes. These are not required actions to be corrected, but suggestions to review for data accuracy. There are two high-level categories of data irregularities in the CMS Web Interface. At the measure level, you may have a zero denominator, which are measures where you answer with an exception for all beneficiaries or you skip all beneficiaries. Each measure has specific denominator requirements, so you are encouraged to check to make sure this information is correct. The next high-level category is at the beneficiary level. You may report measure data for a beneficiary who is not qualified for that measure, as you can see here. This data will be stored but not used in performance calculations. You may also report inconsistent measure data. So the measure questions you answered may contradict the measure logic. This is also stored but not used in performance calculations. Last, you may report measure data for a beneficiary who is not qualified for the sample. This measure data will be stored but not used in performance calculations. As you can see on the Data Irregularities report, you get a description of what is the data irregularity, along with detail identifying the data that we use and the data that will be ignored. Going back to the View Reports page, let's take a look at the activity log. This report displays the activity types performed and the data updated. I can sort the date in the report by activity type or by users, and also filter the activity by a specific date range. You can drill down into each activity and see more detail updates. Navigating back to the View Reports page, the last report is for skip requests. Just like data irregularities, the skip request report will only show if we have skip requests in the web interface. The skip request report is broken out into two areas: the skip request case status and the beneficiary information. The first line shows an example of selecting no other CMS approved reason in an Excel upload. We will need to submit the skip request manually through the data entry pages. We can use the Go to Data Entry link to submit the skip request for the 253rd ranked beneficiary in the PREV 5 measure. The other lines show an example of skip requests that were submitted manually through the data entry pages. Next, let's look at managing clinics. Here you can see that I only have one clinic. If I wanted to add a new clinic and associate that clinic with beneficiaries, I can do so by clicking on Add New. Enter the clinic ID and the clinic name, and click the Save button. To associate this clinic with a beneficiary, you need to go back to the report data page. Selecting a beneficiary, we need to edit the beneficiary demographic. In the clinic name and ID area, we can select a new clinic that we just added and hit Save. The clinic ID is updated for this beneficiary. We can do the same thing with providers. You can see our list of 177 providers. We can sort the list by NPI, last name, first name, EIN. We can edit and delete providers. Navigating back to the View Progress page, we can see that we've completed our minimum reporting requirement. We have no Excel errors and no data irregularities. We've completed 10 out of 10 measures, and we're finished with our reporting for this submission period. At this point, we've seen the functionality that's offered in the CMS Web Interface by viewing progress, reporting data, viewing the reports, managing clinics and providers. This concludes our demonstration of the CMS Web Interface. Thank you for viewing. And Lauren, it's back to you.
Great, thank you. All right, we're just going to transition back to the main screen. And Sandra, it can be back to you.
Thank you, Lauren. Next slide, please. And now we're just going to walk through some resources that are available to you. This slide shows Quality Payment Program resources. First, the resource library, and then a list of resources that you can find in the resource library. And then a link for the Quality Payment Program Help and Support, where you can find additional resources, including support calls, learning network, and APM learning system and developer tools. Next slide, please. And this slide has some Medicare Shared Savings Program resources, the Medicare Shared Savings Program website, quality measures and reporting standards, and we also share a weekly ACO Spotlight newsletter with the Shared Savings Program ACOs. Also on this slide, you'll find some next generation ACO model resources, including the website and the Connect site, and a weekly newsletter for next generation ACO model participants. Next slide, please. And this slide goes over where you can get help from CMS. The Quality Payment Program Help Desk email is on this slide, as well as the Medicare Shared Savings Program ACO email and the Next Generation ACO Model email. Next slide, please. And now I'll turn the webinar back over to Lauren.
Great, thank you, Sandra. All right, we're nearly at the question and answer portion of the webinar, but quickly just wanted to say that we are looking for participants to help us with our human-centered design efforts. So if you're interested in helping out the Quality Payment Program in our research, please email qppuserresearch@cms.hhs.gov. All right, so we're now at the Q&A session. We are going to open up the phone line. So if you would like to ask a question over the phone, you can see the little hand icon to the left of your go-to screen. You can tick that, it'll turn green for us, and we'll go ahead and unmute your line. When we go to unmute your line, we'll just say your name and let you know that your line is free. Alternatively, if you'd like to just ask some questions via the questions box, feel free to do so. So we've got a few questions lined up. First, I'll ask, will the beneficiary sample be available in both the QPP web interface as well as available from the CMS portal or MFT?
Osman, would you like to address that question?
Hi, this is Sandra. For Shared Savings Program ACOs, we will announce in the Shared Savings Program ACO Spotlight when the file will be available.
All right, thank you. Next question asks, if a change in demographics causes a beneficiary to be skipped, do we also need to submit a request for CMS approved reasons?
This is Deb. I can answer that from the purposes of the web interface measure, not necessarily from the tool itself. And that is, if you update the demographics, say you update the gender or you update the date of birth, and the patient is no longer considered denominator eligible for a particular measure, they should automatically be skipped and replaced. There shouldn't be any reason to request a CMS approved reason to skip that patient. However, if there's someone on who can address if that is the way it's working in the tool, that might be helpful.
Hi, this is Aslam. I can respond to that question from the tool's perspective. That is correct. The beneficiary will be skipped appropriately, and the next available beneficiary in the sample will need to be completed to meet the minimum reporting requirements.
All right, thank you. All right, so we will now go to the phone line. So Alex South, we are about to unmute your line, and you may go ahead with your question. All right, Alex, it looks like you are self-muted, so if you'd like to unmute your line, you're able to ask your question.
All right, got it. Thank you. Sorry about that. Two quick questions. One was, so as there's no more help desk ticket numbers that need to be put onto the Excel, because we upload the Excel onto the CMS portal, do we need to enter anything else other than the request? So in other words, if we put in request to be skipped for Medicare or no, for the other reason per se, what do we need to enter anything else in there, or will CMS just automatically push that request in and update if it was denied or accepted kind of thing? If that makes sense.
Yes. So to request the CMS approved reason, you will no longer need to open a help desk ticket. You can go into the web interface, select the beneficiary, and fill out the data that's needed on the screen. Once CMS reviews and gives a decision on that, if that request is approved, the beneficiary will be skipped automatically and marked as skipped. Or if it is denied, the beneficiary will be marked as incomplete. You will be able to see the decision on this request, and if the request was denied, then you will need to complete the information for this beneficiary in order to complete the reporting requirements for the given beneficiary.
All right, great, thank you. All right, next we have a question from Timothy Perkins. Timothy, you can ask your question.
Okay, two quick questions. One is, when will the file be available in a sample form so that we can look at the format and do some testing on our own, the Excel file? And the second question is, when a new clinic ID is created, and will it accept a matching upload from Excel? So if I create the new ID, clinic ID in the portal, and then I go to try to upload my Excel format and it has the correct ID in it, will it upload okay?
Hi, this is Cindy Shibley from CMS. I can answer the first question. The files we're working on now, and so those should be up very shortly. What we will do is we will send out communication to let you know when they are available, but they will be posted in the resource library on qpp.cms.gov.
Great. Look for the notification. Thank you.
Hi, this is Aslam again. For the second part of that question, once you add a clinic in the user interface, you will then need to go to a beneficiary record and then associate that beneficiary with that clinic ID. When you download the Excel file with beneficiary sample Excel file with data, that clinic association for that beneficiary will be listed in the Excel file.
Great, thank you, Aslam. All right, our next question is from Julia Boggs. Actually, sorry, it's from Christy Julian. Christy, you may go ahead. Hi, Christy Julian, you may go ahead with your question. All right, apologies. We'll go on to Deborah Barnhart. Deborah, you may go ahead.
Nope.
Hi, Deborah, you may go ahead. All right, we'll go back to questions from the chat box. First question is, will the beneficiary ID be the HICN or the new ID?
This is Kristen, and the beneficiary samples may include some beneficiaries that are identified with the HICN, but the majority will be identified using the MBI.
Great, thank you. All right, next question asks, approximately how much time would it take for CMS to confirm or deny another CMS approved reason?
Hi, this is Katie from the PIMS team. So generally speaking, I believe that those responses are about 3 days from when they're received. However, that can vary based on what the details of the specific request are and how much information we need to go back and forth with the caller on. So we strive for 3 days, but it may vary depending on your particular circumstance. Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, we will go back to the phone line. Peggy Linton, we are unmuting your line and you may go ahead. Peggy Linton, you may go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't have a question. I'm not sure why it raised the hand.
No worries, we'll move on. All right, on the phone line, we also have Anthony Newton. Anthony Newton, you may go ahead. Anthony Newton, you may go ahead. All right, we'll go back to the questions box. Our next question asks, this is a question that we've gotten a few questions on. So they would like to know, when will the Excel sheet without data be released, the sample Excel sheet, and where will that be found?
Hi, this is Cindy again. So we will be releasing it soon. It will be posted on the QPP resource library at qpp.cms.gov, and we will let you know. So once that is available, we'll let you know, and we will send you the link so you'll be able to click directly into them.
All right, thank you, Cindy. Next question in the questions box asks, in years prior, a ranking file was provided in late December. Will we still receive this beneficiary ranking file to prepare for reporting? Would you like that question read again?
No, that's okay. This is Sandra. So for ACOs, the ranking file will be available, and we will announce it in the ACO Spotlight. It will be similar to the way it was announced in the timing of last year.
Great, thank you. Next question asks, will there be a test file available before the final QPP abstraction file?
Could the caller please explain what they mean? We're not sure what the question is.
Melissa Mull, I can go ahead and unmute your line. You may go ahead.
We can test something, right?
Melissa Mull, you may go ahead with your question. All right, if you're able to submit a clarifying question, we can go ahead and elaborate on that. All right, our next question.
Wait, this is Lisa Marie. There is one thing I do want to say. So I don't know if they mean by test file. So in previous years, the web interface had a test period where you could test the web interface and go in, and then when the submission period started, then your data would be clear that you entered during the test period, and then you would start entering for the actual submission period. And then once the submission period closed, whatever data you entered at that point in time would be captured and submitted to CMS at the close of the submission period. For this submission period for 2019, there is not a test period. So now for web interface users, you will have a longer duration to actually submit data. In previous years, it was 8 weeks long. Now for 2019 performance period, it will actually be a longer time frame from January 2nd to March 31st. So I just want to elaborate that there's no test period or like test file that you will use in the web interface, it will actually be your sample data that you're provided for each measure that you will utilize. And on January 2nd, that's the time frame you can start submitting data. And at the close of the submission period, whatever data that is entered at that time will be what's captured and submitted to CMS.
All right, thank you. So just to clarify, that was related to a sample file that was sent prior to their final beneficiary file. All right, so next question asks, in past years for Prev 12, we have been allowed to use the PHQ-2 as an initial depression screening and use the PHQ-9 as an additional assessment and evaluation for a follow-up. Will this still be the case for this year?
Hi, this is Katie from the PIMS team. So the answer to that is no. Additional evaluation or assessment remains an appropriate follow-up for a positive depression screen. However, completion of additional standardized tool is no longer constituted as a follow-up. It's considered the most recent screen, and in which case, if positive, should have additional follow-up. So the PHQ-9 does not constitute as a follow-up plan for a PHQ-2 depression screen. This is due to the removal of numerator codes for the standardized screening tool from the 2019 Prev coding document by the measure steward. Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, we'll go back to the phone line. We have a question lined up from Karina Magaziner-Rubin. So Karina, we're unmuting your line and you may go ahead.
Hi, just a question about using the manual web interface, entering the data and then uploading Excel files. Can you again clarify what data will stay in the system, what data will be overwritten?
Any data you enter via the user interface, manual data entry screens will be captured and saved automatically. So you don't, as you enter data, you do not need to press the save button. When you download the Excel file and enter the information in the Excel file and upload it to the system, it will be automatically processed and saved in the web interface. If there are certain fields in the Excel file that are not editable through the Excel file upload, such as changing a beneficiary's gender or date of birth, if you change this information in the Excel file and do an upload, the data will be ignored and will not be updated in the web interface. Gender and date of birth can only be updated manually within the web interface.
Great, thank you. All right, our next question on the phone line is from Susan Metzler. Susan, you may go ahead with your question.
Hi there. I just had a question when I saw on the manual entry screen when you were entering in the HbA1c, showing that, and it shows that you need to enter in the date drawn. And we received the date resulted from our CCDs and most of our EMR feeds. Is that okay to have the date resulted in there? And is this true for all measures that have lab data?
Hi, so this is Jamie, and you have great timing. We were discussing your ticket and looking at our responses, and in order to make sure that we give you the proper response, would you mind submitting a help desk ticket? And that just makes sure that we give you an answer that's consistent with how we've answered this question in the past.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great, thank you. So it looks like we have time for just a few more questions. One more question from the chat box asks, should we follow the smoking guidelines for e-cigarettes and vaping?
Hi, this is Angie Stevenson from PIMS. No, the measure currently does not capture e-cigarette usage or vaping as either tobacco or a cessation aid. Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, we will go back to the phone line for one more question. Jill Dale, we can unmute your line and you may go ahead and ask your question. Jill Dale, your line is unmuted and you can ask your question. Okay, no worries. We can go ahead to Josephine Weston. Josephine, your line is unmuted. Josephine Weston, you can go ahead and ask your question. All right, okay, we'll go back to the questions box. So our next question asks, for testing the web API, how do I reserve a data set that will provide me with test accounts?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Of course. It asks, for testing the web API, how do I reserve a data set that will provide me with test accounts?
Aslam, would you be able to answer that question?
Yes.
Hey, this is Laura.
Go ahead, Laura.
So if you navigate to the QPP developer tools under the web interface API section, we have instructions that users can use to navigate through developer preview environment for the API. And the links for those instructions were at the beginning of the slide.
Great, thank you. All right, looks like we have one more time for one more question. So the question asks, will 235 be the minimum number to capture completely for each measure?
Hi, this is Sandra from CMS. The number is 248 is the minimum number for each measure.
Great.
And then also, I just want to elaborate. But if you have a sample that's less than 248, then you're required to report on all of the beneficiaries in that sample.
All right, great, thank you. So it looks like that's all the time that we have for today. If you do have any outstanding questions, please feel free to direct them to the QPP Service Center. You may do so by emailing qpp@cms.hhs.gov or calling 1-866-288-8292. Otherwise, we will be having a CMS Web Interface Kickoff webinar on December 11th from 1 to 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time. So please feel free to register for that and join us for that webinar. And then weekly support calls will begin on January 15th and occur each Wednesday from there until the end of March at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. So thank you for joining.